On the 9th of July 2024, 3 women are found dead inside a house in Bushey, Hertfordshire in England. Less than 24 hours later, 26-year-old ex-soldier Kyle Clifford was arrested in a cemetery in Enfield, North London, in connection with the 3 deaths. It turned out that Clifford was the ex-boyfriend of one of the victims, and that he had murdered all 3 women to revenge himself on his ex-girlfriend for dumping him. Kyle Clifford's early life was a disrupted one, as he and his 3 siblings were moved from one crowded home to another. Neighbours described Clifford as a placid and very reserved child, adding that of the 3 brothers in that family, he was the last one that you'd expect to cause any trouble. Kyle's school records, however, show that he was in trouble for bullying. Police files, meanwhile, show that he had come to the attention of the Met, that's the Metropolitan Police, in relation to possession of cannabis, assault and theft. Now listen to this. One evening in the summer of 2017, Bradley Clifford, one of Kyle Clifford's brothers, ran over an 18-year-old moped driver by the name of Saban Khan with his prized Ford Mustang after chasing him through the streets. While Mr. Khan lay on the road motionless and catastrophically injured, Bradley Clifford proceeded to beat him up, punching him 9 times and telling him that he deserved it. I can't trace why Bradley Clifford did what he did to his victim, but I can tell you that he's now doing a 23-year life sentence for the man's murder. As a result of being run over and beaten up by Bradley Clifford, you see, Mr. Khan died. I'll tell you now though that I can't confirm whether there is such thing as a murder gene, or whether, if there is one such thing, the Cliffords have got it. Now viewer, if I've got you hooked on the story so far, do subscribe, give the video a like, drop a comment when you're ready and donate. Hit the thanks button below, I'll appreciate you. Lacking in inspiration and direction after the jailing of one of his brothers, Kyle Clifford became a trooper in the Queen's Dragoon Guards. It's clear then that having such a close criminal connection as his own brother was no barrier for getting into the army, surprisingly enough. Anyway, during his time in the army, Clifford became addicted to videos showing extreme violence. Moreover, his colleagues reportedly disliked him intensely, feeling that he had misogynistic tendencies and couldn't be trusted. Clifford left the army after 2 years without seeing active service. He then had a stint at a fire and security installation firm in St Albans from February 2022 until July 2023. It was during this time that he met Louise Hunt, a hard-working young woman of 23 who was building a business as a dog groomer. She's the daughter of horse racing commentator John Hunt. Clifford and Louise had been dating for about 6 months when she introduced him to her family. He was her first serious boyfriend, and while she knew about his brother's criminal convictions, she didn't tar Kyle Clifford with the same brush. However, friends of the Hunt family began to notice red flags during Clifford's relationship with Louise. He was controlling and didn't like Louise having male friends. He would phone her asking her when she would be home, even though they didn't live together. And he generally had a controlling attitude towards her. In line with his controlling behaviour, Clifford asked Louise not to wear makeup or wear anything that he considered to be revealing. Louise's family found the man disrespectful, arrogant, rude and odd. Louise herself later revealed that the man was racist, transphobic and that he basically bullied her. In line with these said characteristics of Clifford, in June 2024, some 18 months into her relationship with him, Louise attended, with her boyfriend, the wedding of a friend of his. It took place in Scarborough, a seaside town in the northeast. At this event, Clifford chose to disclose to his girlfriend that he had slept with some of the other women there, and I think he meant that he had done so even while he was with Louise. We know for a fact that the man cheated on Louise systematically throughout the course of their relationship. In any event, Louise responded by dumping him, much to her family's massive relief. She did so by text, having had a heart-to-heart with the man about her concerns regarding his behaviour 2 days before. On getting this message from Louise, Clifford promptly went on a dating site looking for new hookups. That said, although Clifford appeared to accept the decision, replying after 10 minutes to wish Louise all the best, an hour and 20 minutes later, he started writing a suicide note on his phone. So 1 minute the man is looking to get his leg over with any woman that would have him. The next minute he's making plans to top himself. Now that's what I call confusing. What we of course know for sure is that Clifford didn't mean his well wishes to Louise. He was in fact extremely angry with Louise, first for dumping him and second for rejecting his attempts to get back with her, begging her for another chance being something that he soon took to. He was also angry with Louise's family as he had correctly assumed that they had advised Louise to dump him. The man's revenge would catch everyone off guard. On the 28th of June 2024, so just a few days after Louise dumped Clifford, Clifford was captured on CCTV buying a 30-metre length of rope that would later be used in his attack on Louise, who was by then aged 25, on her sister Hannah, aged 28, and on their mother, Carol, 61. 2 days later, on June the 30th, he began the first of a series of searches on his phone for crossbows. He also looked up air rifles and was calling a mental health phone line called Talking Therapies. A couple of days later, July the 2nd, Clifford looked up the Facebook profile of Kyle Hunt, Louise's mother, and he had a telephone conversation with his brother about buying a crossbow. He ended up purchasing a Horizon Cornet MXT 405 compound crossbow with a pack of 6 crossbow carbon bolts and a cocking device, all for £357. Clifford then started searching online for knives on July the 5th, and he purchased a high-level 10-inch butchering steel knife for £89. Later that day, he went to London where he met a friend of his from the army, and the pair stayed in a hotel. The friend noticed nothing strange about Clifford, but he did think that it was odd that Clifford left the next morning without saying goodbye. Around that time, Clifford received a message from his sister, Sian. The conversation that ensued is chilling now that we've got the hindsight. She asked him, "Why are you taking your crossbow out? What are you playing at? It's illegal." Clifford brushed off her concerns and replied, "I'm at Zach's, lol, chill, shooting in the back garden, chill." Sian then tells him, "Okay, well don't take it out, put it in the boot." Clifford reassured her, saying, "Yeah, it's wrapped up in the boot, don't worry." On the day of the attack, Louise's father, John Hunt, had headed out to work, as had Louise's beautician sister, Hannah. Louise herself was doing her dog grooming work from a pod in the garden. At one point, she texted her mother, Carol, to place a lunch order on Deliveroo from Joe and the Juice. At 1:48 p.m, after parking up close to the Hunt family home, Clifford noticed John's car parked outside, and having seen that, he immediately made internet searches for horse racing taking place on that day to check whether or not John would be at work or in the house at that time. I'm assuming that he discovered that John was most probably at work, meaning that the coast was clear. I believe that Clifford himself believed that if John had been at home, he would never have let the man into his house. After satisfying himself that John was out, Clifford then took a black rucksack from the boot of his Seat Ibiza that contained the 10-inch butcher's knife that he had very recently bought. Carol was the one who opened the door to Clifford when he came knocking, and he told her he'd written a card to say goodbye and that it was a card addressed to Carol and John. And in that card, which he actually had written, he thanked them for allowing him to be part of the family for 18 months and added, "Your family has shown me love and kindness." The conversation that followed was picked up in some kind of audio recording. With no clue as to what Clifford was really up to, Carol was heard telling him, quote, "Maybe think in the next relationship the way you are and maybe try and change. If you carry on like this, you'll end up on your own," unquote. Continuing his false act, Clifford told Carol that he was making efforts to change his life and had started therapy. Carol then soothed Clifford, saying, "I don't think you're a nasty person, and, well, I wish you luck, Kyle," unquote. Clifford then asked for a bag to put Louise's possessions in. It was at this point that things took a devastating turn. Within a minute of being let inside the property, a series of screams could be heard. Carol died very quickly from the stab wounds that Clifford inflicted to her chest and to her stomach. Clifford then returned to his car at 3:10 p.m. to retrieve the crossbow that was hidden under a white cloth. He waited in the house for about an hour while Louise worked in the garden, completely oblivious to the horror that had taken place inside. At 4:13 p.m, she entered the home, and a faint scream was captured on the audio. Clifford restrained her with duct tape and then raped her. At 5:52 p.m, Clifford messaged John Hunt, Louise's father, and he did so from Louise's phone, asking what time he would be home. He then shot Louise with the crossbow at about 6:50 p.m, killing her. This was just before the older sister, Hannah, returned home. Hannah was recorded on the CCTV shouting at Clifford, and she then messaged her partner. I don't know how she managed to do so, but she did. After she did so, however, Clifford shot her with the crossbow, and that happened at 6:54 p.m, after which Clifford walked away from the property. Despite being shot, Hannah managed to phone the emergency services, who arrived at 7:10 p.m. Carol and Louise were both already dead by then, and Hannah, sadly, wasn't able to be resuscitated, and she died as well. The following day, after a 22-hour search, Clifford was located at a cemetery in the Lavender Gardens area of Enfield, North London, at around 4 p.m. On being spotted by the police, Clifford shot himself in the chest with his crossbow as officers approached him. When he shot himself with the crossbow, he severed several vital spinal tendons, which left the man paralysed from the chest down. This was an attempt clearly to end his own life. However, since he left it to the last possible minute, it was rushed, and therefore, because of that, it didn't work. During the man's 10-week hospital stay, he required a 24-hour police guard. While he lay in the hospital, the only comments he made were "sorry" and "what I have done is atrocious." When he was finally fit to give an interview, however, he replied no comment to all the questions.
Do you accept, Kyle, that based on the evidence, that this is a premeditated murder of 3 people?
No comment.
Do you accept that you have meticulously planned this murder from the moment that you split up Louise?
No comment.
From the moment that she sent you that text message at the end of June, you began to plan her murder? Yes?
No comment.
Clifford eventually came to realise the level of evidence stacked against him and changed his initial not guilty plea to guilty. If he thought, however, that he might get a sentence reduction for sparing the need for a trial, because that's what happens when you plead guilty, he got 3 whole life orders instead. Ha!
You have been referred to at times as a former soldier. In many cases, that would serve as significant mitigation. Not so in your case, however, as your 2 years in the army included 286 days at home claiming to be ill. You never saw active service, and your utility to the armed forces can be gleaned in a parting comment from your commanding officer that, quote, "His character is wholly unsuited to military employment, and he has no care nor concern beyond himself." You first talked to Carol Hunt on the doorstep and persuaded her to admit you. She spoke kindly to you, but you then attacked her, stabbing her to death within moments of entering. You then left the house to collect the crossbow. Louise Hunt had been working in a building in the garden of the house. When she came in, you restrained her with duct tape round her wrists and ankles and gagged her. You kept her there alive for over 2.5 hours. She must have come to realise you'd already killed her mother. During that time, you raped her. Then you murdered her by shooting her with the crossbow as her sister Hannah was about to enter the house. Hannah Hunt was in a rush. She saw you and realised something was very wrong. You then shot her with the crossbow, causing an injury she could never hope to survive, but she remained alive long enough to see the unspeakable violence you had already inflicted on her mother and her sister. The evidence I have heard shows you to be a jealous man, soaked in self-pity, a man who holds women in utter contempt. This is no occasion to subject the family and friends of your victims to any delay or suspense. I therefore make clear at once that for each of these 3 murders, the sentence will be one of life imprisonment with a whole life order. That means a sentence from which you will never be released.
His sentencing took place in March 2025. From being a family of 5, the Hunt family is now reduced to a father and a daughter only, there being, as you can see, a 3rd daughter. These are the words of the father, John, in his victim impact statement.
When I was first invited to provide a victim impact statement, I initially misunderstood its purpose. Do I really need to detail the impact of having 3/4 of my family murdered? He went on, whatever sentence you're about to receive, whatever misery lies ahead for you in the next 60 years, remember that after your days on earth are done, on your dying day there will be no release for you, Kyle. The screams of hell, Kyle, I can hear them faintly now. They're going to roll the red carpet out for you.
Murdering 3 people in cold blood just because he got dumped. If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.